Hello everyone, my name is Cody Sullivan. I am going to present to you about Ford AutoXchange, a business-to-business marketplace that was created by Ford Motors in the 90s. Ford Motors was founded by Henry Ford in 1903. Its home base is now in Dearborn, Michigan, which is a suburb just outside of Detroit. The vision of Henry Ford's Ford Motor Company was to bring affordable cars into the working man's household. And by creating this, he also created an auto manufacturing industry that is what we have today, and that is derived from the assembly line. That's a key to his success, was the creation of an assembly line where parts were put together from start to finish through an assembly line to create a more cost-effective, efficient way to manufacture vehicles in this particular case. A little information about the auto industry. In 2017, there's roughly 17.2 million vehicles sold in the United States alone. Now, this is down a little bit from the previous year, I believe, but what is interesting is the average cost has increased, which the average cost previously was a little below $30,000, which now the average cost of vehicles sold is $32,000, which is interesting and has other implications elsewhere, but not in our model at the moment. And that estimates about $550 trillion in sales for 2017. So quite a very large industry, obviously, as we look on the roads, and there's cars everywhere. So what is AutoXchange? AutoXchange was one of the first attempts to create an online supply chain management system where suppliers would compete on an open market against each other. And in these instances, the idea was the higher competition, the lower the cost to be for the manufacturers. And this is a great deal. And the idea was to be set up by, say, GM, Ford, and Chrysler, where they'll get 300,000 of their Tier 1 and Tier 2 suppliers competing against each other to drive the cost down to the manufacturers, while on the back end, they're making money off of revenue for charging these suppliers to use their system in their business-to-business marketplace. And it seemed like a great idea. It's going to produce all sorts of revenue, lower costs, increase their profit margins. It just seemed like a really great idea. And in the video below, you will see Ford Motor Company explaining and talking about their AutoXchange business-to-business marketplace. So if you could please click on that and follow the link and then come back and resume, I greatly appreciate it. I hope you all enjoyed that video. I know it's a little outdated, so I apologize, but it gave very good content and gave you a real good idea of how Ford Motors felt about the AutoXchange idea and concept and what it would do for them in the industry. Now, we know it didn't work out that way, but at least it gave you an idea what they were thinking and the idea behind it. And it is a great idea. It has many flaws, but as does everything. But at the time, Ford AutoXchange was not the only marketplace that was out there. GM had a similar one, as did Chrysler and a few others in European countries, but GM's was called Trade Exchange, and it was designed to solve their own supply chain issues, so slightly different than Ford's, a little smaller, a little more intimate, but at the time they were working with roughly 30,000 suppliers to assemble the parts of their vehicles, and that's just, that's a complete nightmare. And trying to streamline that process and create a better workflow for parts and for when inventory issues is just there's a huge need for something to be done. So what are these supply chain management systems trying to solve? They were trying to create competition on an open market so that they could lower their cost, right? That's business 101. Sourcing problems. There was a lot of issues from sourcing problems. So, some companies had a certain type of part, say AC coolant system, and only had so many inventory. This was, created to show, okay, GM needs 100,000 small coolant systems. How can we fill that? How can we source those products and those parts in a better, more efficient manner? And like I said earlier, cost is a big thing. Lowering cost, increasing profits, revenue. So trying to drive back in revenue on this by creating an open market like this, they were also charging the suppliers to belong to it and participate in it. So they're collecting fees on the back end, which we'll get into a little later. Some issues that, and another thing was time. So time's a big thing. How can we decrease the amount of time it takes to get parts and increase the amount of time that we can complete products and efficiency? Overall, they want to be efficient as possible. That's the whole idea of the supply chain management, and to increase the processes to make it more efficient, so you reduce your costs, reduce your time, and you increase your profits. Wow, that sounds great. I mean, all of those problems sound fixable with this, and this seems like a really great idea. And I'm sure you're thinking of me as like, well, I don't understand. The management information systems involved in this at the time, especially in the 90s, this was really something. You're creating these advanced supply chain management systems that were going to be able to solve all the issues for these companies, and they're going to be able to lower costs, increase the flexibility of sourcing for parts, and increase quality. Well, we'll see if all that did happen. So what happened? Obviously, they deployed this system and it was a flop. And some of the reasons why I've kind of listed below is to kind of go over there and touch on them. I mean, there's endless number of possibilities or reasons, and every company would have their different reasons as far as every supplier. I mean, but overall, in general, the suppliers are very hesitant of this. There was many things they didn't like about it. They didn't want the price of their product, aka having the lowest price, to be the determining factor for a supplier purchase. They want the quality, right? They want quality is what matters to them, not the price. They want suppliers to buy their parts because it's the best or because it suits their needs the best, not because it's the lowest, cheapest thing out there. That's not what suppliers wanted to do and change their production to meet that. Timeliness, that's another big issue that came out of this was, yeah, you could fill these orders, but in what time? How quick can we get these parts to you? And, what kind of flexibility is there in getting those parts to you? Are there limitations to that? And there was a lot of limitations. There was a lot of failure. And it ultimately was a huge failure. But it did, however, lead to these private networks that we have today that auto manufacturers use with a few selected suppliers. They're not sourcing from hundreds of thousands of suppliers. So there's a few selected suppliers with a very transparent, open supply chain management that allows them to get products at a timely manner, at a high quality. So with the supply chain management system, what were kind of some of the key features. In the early 90s, obviously, this was a really great thing to be happening, and was really going to help solve a lot of the issues. This issue of connection between suppliers and manufacturers. And by creating the supply chain management, you're creating a direct connection that would allow for better communication for the needs of the manufacturers and the better communication for the available parts from suppliers, quantity, inventory on both ends, and the integration of these needs, and the integration for what manufacturers are going to need, when they're going to need it, how suppliers can fill that, and to better create a workflow for both of them so they can get what they want in a timely manner. I mean, this is a really big deal, and the collaboration of these companies would lead to obviously better process flow for manufacturers, straighter alignment with suppliers and not going through so many twists and turns to get a product, creating a better channel for this. And, also the idea for the original, AutoXchange is there's some transactional technology involved as far as making money off the back end of the system, which ultimately didn't come through to these new private networks. And below I kind of show, raw material goes, and suppliers make raw material, and then that goes into the manufacturers, say GM, Ford, Chrysler, and all these car manufacturers make a product. Just kind of giving you an idea. So what others are out there at the time? AutoXchange and Trade Exchange were kind of the two bigger ones for GM and Ford. This later led in the 2000s to the big three mega groups, Ford, GM, Chrysler, to create their own. And this did ultimately lead to an investigation by the federal government to see if they're creating a monopoly and be able to basically demand whatever prices they want. And that ended up getting cleared, and it's so it was still a legitimate business operation. It just ended up ultimately failing as well because the free open market for suppliers, where prices, what's driving the quality of products and determining who's going to get it, is just ultimately suppliers didn't want that, and it was not successful. What goes on today? So today there's private channels, private networks for these suppliers and manufacturers, and each typically has their own. There's no open markets where multiple manufacturers compete, or can source parts from multiple suppliers. Typically, GM has its own suppliers that it uses, and it has its own supply chain management where they have access to each other's inventory needs and demands and can create custom orders as needed. Now, this causes increased flexibility for parts orders, obviously, since there are fewer companies for the suppliers to compete with, and they can focus more on one company. And this has more accurate timelines for the purchasing and delivery of products. So when you drop off your vehicle, say at Ward Martin, GM, and Champaign, to get it serviced, and you need a new fuel pump, well, they can give you an exact time when they're going to get that in, so when they're going to have the car finished for you. Say it's going to take 2 days and you don't want to leave your car, you can bring a car back in 2 days. They'll have it in 30 minutes, and boom, you're off again. I mean, that's a big deal for the service department. Sorry. And this is a guaranteed quality. They know what you're getting. You're not outsourcing 100,000 fuel pumps from some Joe Schmo shop that is making some crap out of Pixie cups. You know what you're getting. You're getting a good quality, and that's what is built the brand, and that's why people buy, say, GM or buy Ford vehicles, because of their brand loyalty and awareness of that. And better integration of systems. With having these closed network systems, these private networks, they're able to have a more intimate relationship, and this is going to help both ends better understand the needs for each business. Here are some of the sources I used. If you would like to check them out and find a little more information about some of these business-to-business marketplaces, specifically the Ford Auto Exchange. As far as to Industry Week had a pretty good article about supply chain management and auto industry and some interesting stuff there. I'd like to thank you for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions, comment on Yellow Dig, and I will get back to those questions with the best of my ability. Appreciate it, and thank you.